Hello and welcome to another edition of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers, and the Diamondbacks lose their three-game series to the Los Angeles Dodgers, dropping the finale tonight by a final score of 3-1. Jack, the Diamondbacks take a fairly early 1-0 lead. I guess not all that early. Ketel Marte hit his solo home run in the fourth. And then Corbin Burnes was really, really good once again, but he threw basically one bad pitch in the sixth inning that ultimately cost the Diamondbacks this game.
Yeah, I was rubbing my eye as we went on air here. I was not crying, just something in my eye, but I could have been. It's another tough loss, and a sad one for them to drop the series in the process.
Yeah, just yet another game that sort of felt winnable for the Diamondbacks, right? While I mentioned Corbin Burnes primarily on the front end, the Diamondbacks did not lose this game because of Corbin Burnes. Like I don't think you can really argue that. They lost this game really because of their offense, which obviously had a bit of a rough one on Tuesday as well. Sort of came alive late with the Gabriel Moreno and Corbin Carroll home runs, but the Diamondbacks still only scored 3 runs in 10 innings on Tuesday. And then in this game, it was just the Ketel Marte solo home run. They had an opportunity in the sixth inning with runners at the corners and one out. Gino Suarez at the plate. He wound up popping out. Pavin Smith wound up grounding out. That was a big missed opportunity for them and kind of continued a trend for the Diamondbacks where they've just struggled to come through with those big hits.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things we're going to be talking about with situational hitting. I'd just like to preface it with obviously Dustin May, when he's right, and he was right tonight, that sweeper was really working, is a very tough pitcher. Last night, Yoshinobu Yamamoto was very, very good. So, they faced some really tough starting pitching. But that's the kind of starting pitching they're going to have to be able to beat if they're going to make the playoffs and if they're going to do anything if they get there. And unfortunately, they weren't able to get the job done this series, especially when it came to situational hitting.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an issue for the Diamondbacks here for a while, and certainly was an issue for them in the game on Tuesday. We'll talk about that more later in the show. But I guess sticking with Corbin Burnes here, Jack, he was really good. I mean, he tossed 5 scoreless innings before that 3-run homer by Teoscar Hernandez in the sixth. That home run snapped a 21 inning scoreless streak for Corbin Burnes, and he's been Corbin Burnes here his last few times out. There's no doubting that.
Yeah, I mean, brought a no-hitter into the fourth inning, and like you said, it was one bad pitch, one slider that got away. I mean, it kind of felt like the Dodgers were going to get to him a little bit in the sixth inning. You could kind of sense it coming, especially when Rojas led off the inning with a base hit. You spin around to the top of that order, you figure somebody's going to get you with a runner on and nobody out, and you're facing Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman. The odds are you're going to give up a run there. And unfortunately, it actually was the fourth hitter, the cleanup hitter, Teoscar Hernandez, who made his presence known with crushing that mistake slider dead center field all the way up on top of that netting well beyond the center field wall. I mean, that was a blast. But it's really, I mean, Corbin Burnes was great tonight. I mean, you saw the look on his face. He's like, he couldn't believe he hung one pitch, but he was nearly perfect before that. And it's so impressive to see him become the pitcher that we had hoped he would become. I think 7 of his 8 strikeouts came on the curveball tonight. His ability to transition and, mix it up. And last time he totally dominated with the cutter and got all that swing and miss. And tonight he did it with the curveball. So pretty amazing stuff from Corbin Burnes. Tip of the cap, fantastic outing. He did not lose this game. His offense lost this game.
Burnes' cutter was also really good in this game. You mentioned he was using the curveball really to finish guys off. 11 swings on the curveball tonight and 9 whiffs, which is an outrageous 82% whiff rate. That pitch was outstanding, but it's all based on the cutter, right? He threw the cutter 58% of the time tonight, and we talked a lot early in the season about Burnes just not being able to command that pitch the way that we're used to seeing. That wasn't the case for him tonight. I mean, he was just regularly pounding that cutter in on left-handed hitters in particular. There were a lot of very uncomfortable at-bats against him, and he threw 56 cutters, Jack, and 42 of them went for strikes. That's when Corbin Burnes is at his best, when he's able to do that.
Yeah, I think he was 67 for 96 in strikes overall. I mean, that's nearly a 70% strike rate. My colleague and good friend Michael McDermott pointed out to me in text that Burnes's walk per nine is now under 4. So that's pretty cool. He's a great pitcher who's on a run right now. And unfortunately, he had his scoreless streak broken, as you tweeted out. It had gotten up to 21 before that home run. And hopefully he's able to continue this, and hopefully he'll get some more run support in his next outing. You're muted, Jess.
That was outstanding. I just had Jack disappear and me muted at the same time. That was great. Anyway, we're back now. You mentioned it earlier, Jack. Dustin May was also really, really good in this game. 6 innings, only 1 run allowed, 8 strikeouts. He really had his sweeper working. Diamondbacks, of course, struggled against him his last time out as well. I guess his last time against them. And Dustin May, on the whole, is a really good pitcher. I know his ERA this season was not sparkling coming into this game, but when Dustin May is on, he's really one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, he came into this game with a 7.0 hits per 9 in his career and a 212 batting average against in his career. He's always been very difficult to hit with his stuff, and that was on display tonight.
We mentioned Ketel with the solo home run, the Diamondbacks' only offense in this game. Not much to speak of there, but it was an impressive swing, Jack. It was a sinker from Dustin May that was down in the zone, and we often see Ketel do that. It feels like Ketel can homer on just about any pitch, and he did there.
Yeah, that was, I think, his second longest home run in Dodger Stadium. I think it went 425 feet. In 2017, he hit just a ridiculous smash to the back of the bullpen. Was the first time I saw, oh, wow, this guy can really blast the ball. So Michael also reminded me of that tonight. I mention Michael a lot. He's usually the smartest guy in the room when we're together.
Well, we will get into some broader takeaways from this series as a whole, as the Diamondbacks dropped 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers in this series. But first, a quick word from the guys over at Foul Territory.
FT fam, let's talk about the HOF app. If you're into parlays, but sometimes you're missing the mark more than you would like to, can I introduce you to some serious analytics on an app that is easy to read and comprehend? And I'm sitting next to a man who knows how to place a parlay.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is breaking down a parlay. With this Hall of Fame app, there's the situations that you'll find easier to do. It's very helpful and understanding. And if you like, gambling, sometimes this is really good to know. So get on there, get on that Hall of Fame app and check it out.
Yeah, this is info that will help you, okay? With a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 5-star reviews, safe to say that HOF has already helped a lot of people bet smarter. For a limited time only, FT listeners can get a 7-day free trial and 50% off their first month when they use code FOUL at checkout. Download the HOF app on iOS or Android. Enter code FOUL and you're all set.
We are back here on Snakes Territory. For all of you joining us here live in the chat, we really appreciate you being here after what was really kind of a bummer of a game from the Diamondbacks' perspective. But we were talking about it earlier, Jack. I think the story of this series, if you want to sum it up in one stat, would be 150. That was the Diamondbacks' batting average with runners in scoring position over the course of these 3 games. Even on Monday, when they put up 9 runs against the Dodgers, they were only 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. They were 2 for 9 in the game on Tuesday. You could argue they shouldn't have let that game get to extra innings. In theory, they had some opportunities toward the end of that one to really capitalize and were unable to do that. And then in this game, they were 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. Two of those outs coming in that 6th inning that we referenced earlier, where they had runners at the corners and only 1 out.
Right. And same thing on Tuesday. They had runners at the corners and nobody out in the 8th inning and didn't score. And they had Corbin Carroll on third base in the first game um, after hitting a leadoff triple, I think in the 5th inning, and he did not score. Like you said, they were 3 for 20. It's been a problem all year, and it's really mystery to me. Last year, the Diamondbacks were the number one team, hitting 285 with runners in scoring position. They also had the highest OPS, over 850. This year, they came into tonight batting 232 and ranked 23rd in Major League Baseball in runners in scoring position. And with runners on third and less than 2 outs, they were hitting 295, which may sound great, but the league average is 315. And that's mostly the same guys. And if anything, I think Josh Naylor probably has been better with runners in scoring position than Christian Walker was. Clearly, Pavin Smith has had issues in those situations, but for the most part, it's the same players. So the one thing I do want to say is that batting average with runners in scoring position that we talk about so much on a game-to-game basis, and they matter. I mean, when you look at missed opportunities, they matter. They contribute to the run scoring, but it's very random. It's not predictable. It's not projectable, and you have essentially the same cast of characters that led the league in this category last year, and now they're lagging in the bottom 7 this year. Maybe some of it's approach. Maybe they're swinging for the fences more. They have been hitting more homers and been more home run dependent this year. But the bottom line is they probably are also just getting into a little bit of bad luck and getting into a funk. I do have to say, though, this series, a lot of weak contact, a lot of pop-ups, a lot of tap-outs. It's not like they've been stinging the ball and driving into somebody's glove. That's not been the case the last few days.
You could argue, based on just the quality of contact, that the Diamondbacks were kind of fortunate to make the Tuesday game as close as they did. I think the Dodgers ended that game with a 315 expected batting average, and the Diamondbacks were at 142 or something like that. They really made absolutely no compelling contact really against Yamamoto, at least not until Ketel Marte hit one of the longest singles that you've ever seen at 111 miles an hour off the bat. But yeah, I guess that kind of brings us into these last couple games, Jack, where the Diamondbacks got really effective but kind of odd pitching performances from both Ryne Nelson and Brandon Pfaadt. Both guys wound up with totally solid lines. Only 1 run allowed for Nelson on Tuesday in 5 innings, 3 runs in 6 innings for Brandon Pfaadt. You'll certainly take those, especially at Dodger Stadium, but the quality of contact for both of those guys was pretty rough. The Dodgers were regularly making hard contact, and it seemed like a lot of those found gloves for both of those pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, each guy only walked 1 batter, and they clearly were trying to get ahead and steal strikes and pitch to contact and get short at bats and get deeper in the game. I think that's a conscious strategy, especially for Nelson, because he was on a 65 to 70 pitch count heading into the game. So the fact that he was able to be as efficient as he was and finish 5 was helpful, of course. Brandon Pfaadt, the 6 innings, the 3 hits were 3 solo home runs, which is another issue altogether. But 0 strikeouts, which is very odd. But he got it. He pitched a quality start. He gave his team a chance to win. Unfortunately, the offense wasn't there, and then they had some other issues come up late in the game.
That they did. We don't have to delve too far into that, but yeah, I mean, you have to give Ryne Nelson and Brandon Pfaadt credit for sure for going after guys, for getting ahead in counts, as you mentioned. And at the end of the day, it's not all about expected batting average. Like, the number of actual runs that you give up is really the most important thing. Even us baseball nerds will acknowledge that from time to time. But yeah, the bullpen was certainly part of the narrative, really in both games, Jack. You would have liked to see the Diamondbacks get out of that game on Monday with a win without Shelby Miller having to be used and get the final out in the 9th inning. And then, of course, that kind of blew up in their face as Shelby, in his 3rd game in 3 days, pitched again on Tuesday, and he was not able to secure that one for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, Ryan Thompson is a problem. I mean, hopefully they can figure it out. I'm not sure exactly what the problem is. I mean, the sinker hasn't been as good. We've talked about this before. He clearly now, I think, has a confidence issue in his ability to command the ball and put it where he needs to put it. We mentioned this last time. I think we said he's a ground ball pitcher who's not getting ground balls.
Yeah, right.
And he's just been getting hit around. I loathe to second guess things when I don't have the opportunity to speak to Torey. But I've been second guessing since the weekend why Christian Montes de Oca didn't get any reps with very large leads. It happened over the weekend twice against Colorado. And yes, it's Dodger Stadium, but you have a 6-run lead. Maybe you want to get Ryan Thompson right, but maybe the best way to get Ryan Thompson right is give him a little bit more time off and work on some things, and I don't think you're going to you can't blow the lead with Dioka facing the 3. The worst he can do is give up a 3-run homer, so it wouldn't have been any worse. And give the guy a shot and see if he can get a couple of outs, right? And let him face his 3 batter minimum. And I just think that the failure to use Dioka at all left Torey with a 7-man bullpen instead of 8, and forced him to use pitchers that he didn't have to use quite so much. And that snowballed and caught up. I truly believe the cascade effect was what caused all of this, and I don't understand it. But unfortunately, I'm not there to ask Torey what gives. But it just felt like the only way that he was going to use Dioka was if the starter got knocked out in the 2nd or 3rd inning, or if he was in a situation where he would have had to use a position player to pitch. And, otherwise, when is this guy supposed to pitch? It's been here a week now. They haven't pitched.
It is. I will definitely agree with you. It's weird that Montes de Oca's been here a week and has not pitched, but it's also hard for me to really ever fault a manager for who they put in with a 6-run lead. Like, regardless of who's struggling and how much they're struggling, if they're in your major league bullpen, they've got to be able to secure a game where you're up by 6 runs in the 9th inning. And it's hard for me to really point the finger at Torey when Ryan Thompson just has struggled time and time again. And entering the season, like, Ryan Thompson was, someone you figured the D-backs would depend on for a lot of key outs late in games. And even though he has struggled so much, like, I don't know if I blame the Diamondbacks for putting him in a game in Dodger Stadium with a 6-run lead. Like, that's a situation he should be able to handle.
Well, we're probably not going to agree here because, as you said, he's been bad time and time again. So, at some point you have to kind of say, all right, you know what? Maybe I need to make an adjustment here in my usage pattern. And but yes, 9-3 is a low leverage situation.
That's what I'm saying. If
you have a limitation on the guys you have, Jess, you have to use everybody. And if Dioka is not usable 3 times with a 6-run lead, 3 times the team had 6-run lead twice and a 5-run lead another time, right? They had an 11-6 lead, they had a 6-run lead and another 6-run lead. And you know what? If he's not usable with a 6-run lead, then why did you call him up? He shouldn't be in the bullpen. So I'm just countering your argument with that. Like, why is he a major leaguer at this point? Meanwhile, find another way to get Thompson right, because running him out there time after time to give up multiple runs and crooked numbers isn't working.
Yeah. I mean, the Diamondbacks, to be fair, they did wind up winning the game. It wasn't like Ryan Thompson lost them the Monday game by any means. Shelby Miller comes in and gets the final out on 4 pitches, and the Diamondbacks escape there with a victory. It did, you could argue, have an effect on the Tuesday game, though. As I mentioned earlier, Shelby pitching in 3 consecutive games. And it was tough, Jack. I mean, once Tommy Edman hit that RBI double to start the bottom of the 10th and the Dodgers lineup flipped over, It was like, all right, I mean, you've already got the tying run in scoring position with nobody out, and the top of the best lineup in baseball, one of the best lineups in baseball coming up. At that point, it was really it was kind of tough to feel great in that moment. So and beyond that, I'm curious how you feel about the way the D-backs approached it. They did intentionally walk two batters in that 10th inning. They intentionally walked Ohtani, and after Ohtani stole second, they intentionally walked Friedman. I know Torey has drawn some criticism in the past for not intentionally walking some of the best hitters in the opposing lineup, but it wasn't a great look with how things ended on Tuesday.
I think that's very results-oriented criticism. I didn't agree with any of that. I mean, first base open, you're going to let Ohtani beat you. Now he stole second base, first base open. You're going to let Friedman beat you. It doesn't make any sense. You see, you put the force on. You have a chance to get out of the game with a ground ball. So I didn't have any problem with it at all. The problem was that Shelby had worked too much and lost his command and hit Muncy. I mean, that was the problem. He hit a batter.
Yeah.
So it's very easy in retrospect to say, oh, why did he intentionally walk these guys? And, you put the winning run on base. But in this case, I have no problem with the strategy used there. Again, I just want to circle back real quick. The one thing that kind of bothers me in the discourse with Torey is when people disagree with a move he made, they kind of all of a sudden shout, he's an idiot. He should be fired. This is inexcusable. And, let's not go there. It's fine to disagree and to criticize a move. But I just want to remind everyone that most of the time, he's got an explanation that you didn't think of. Most of the time, we're wrong. Sometimes we're right. Hey, great minds. And there's millions of people out there, and he's one guy. And sometimes somebody's going to think of something that he didn't think of or have a better thought process than he had in the moment, in the heat of the game, in the dugout. And that's his job. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. But the point is that if I'd have been able to ask him about this, maybe I'd have a different opinion than I have right now. Just I'm not on the road with the team. So, unfortunately, it's something I'm going to have to just have a side conversation with him when he comes back and understand. But I just want to remind 50% of the time we think he made a bonehead move. We're dead wrong right from the get-go. And then the next 25%, at least his explanation made sense. And maybe 25% of the time, he kind of screwed that one up.
Yeah, I think the calculus most people use is if it didn't work, then it was the wrong decision. And I'm not seriously criticizing the decisions to intentionally walk Ohtani and Friedman. I agree with you that I think those were the pretty obvious moves you had to make in those moments. It just didn't work out. Shelby did not have his best command. On a happier note, Jack, a positive takeaway from this 3-game series is that Gabriel Moreno looked like a little bit of a different hitter. He homered in the game on Monday. He came back and hit a pretty epic game-tying 9th inning home run against Tanner Scott on Tuesday. It was really the reason that game went into extra innings from the get-go. Torey Lovullo showed quite a bit of faith in Moreno in elevating him to the number 3 spot in the lineup for tonight's game. He looks different to me right now at the plate.
Yeah, he does. He very much looks different. And of course, anyone that follows me on X or, follows all our good friends knows that we had a little bit of fun with this because Gabby had not been pulling the ball in the air all year long. And I had just tweeted out, he hasn't, they keep talking about Gabby's pulling the ball more. He hasn't pulled one in the air all year. Boom, home run to left. And then he did it again the next night. So I caught a lot of fun about that on X, but it's good to see him doing it. 2/3 of home runs in baseball are hit by fly balls in the air, and sure, he can take one out to opposite field, but now if he's able to also turn on the ball and drive it deep, that re-adds a weapon in his toolbox and makes it harder to pitch to him.
Yeah. I think we sometimes get a little bit lost in the Gabby lane. Gabby is best when he's going to the opposite field. I think sometimes we take that to an extreme and think that Gabby should never, ever, ever pull the ball. That if he ever pulls the ball, it's the worst thing ever. It means he's just, he's doing all the worst things up at the plate. It actually, just from kind of a statistic standpoint, one of the most predictive stats when it comes to how many home runs you're going to hit is what is your pull air percentage? What percentage of your batted balls are pulled and in the air? Because not that many hitters can regularly hit opposite field home runs. It takes a lot of power to do that. And we have seen Gabby do it. I believe he had one earlier this season, but you're not hitting 15, 20 home runs to the opposite field if you have Gabriel Moreno's raw power. It's just not likely to happen. And I think when we saw Moreno really elevate his game offensively down the stretch in 2023 and in the postseason, you saw him pulling the ball pretty regularly at that point. And that's when he kind of enters another gear as a hitter and becomes more of a power threat rather than just a guy who's kind of spraying singles all over the place. So I think that was a good sign, something that frustrated D-backs fans can kind of hold on to after a rough 3-game series.
I saw a really funny line on Facebook. I apologize. I can't remember who to credit to. It said it was very nice of Christian Walker to sublet Dodger Stadium to Gabriel Moreno.
7 of his 20 career home runs are at Dodger Stadium. I believe it was our friend Michael McDermott who pointed that out on Twitter yesterday. 7 out of 20 in his career. Pretty remarkable numbers there. Transitioning here, Jack, another storyline that we wanted to hit on, which we didn't touch on in our last show. A couple people reached out and wanted us to talk about this. Jordan Lawlar, just his situation, his role with the Major League team. We did see Lawlar get into the starting lineup in the Tuesday game, but to me, it was very noteworthy when in a big spot late in the game, Torey went to the bench and got Gino Suarez and pinch hit for Jordan Lawlar against a left-handed pitcher in one of the biggest moments in that game. It kind of showed that Lawlar is, he's not as much of a utility player as he is kind of a backup. And right now, Torey wants his frontline players in there in the biggest moments of the game. You can see here, it's such an incredibly small sample that it feels ridiculous to be judging a player off this. But Lawlar is 0 for 10 with 7 strikeouts and a walk since the Diamondbacks brought him up to the majors. And, he has gotten, I believe, 3 starts at this point, but it feels like it's a little bit tricky for Torey to find playing time right now.
I think that it's important to note that we have discussed this before, and the truth is he was called up prematurely. It's not fair to, like you said, to judge based on 0 for 10 or 2 for 20 or whatever that would be. This has nothing to do with that. Prior to his call up, we highlighted the point that he was batting 152 with a 316 slug against right on right off speed. And so if he can't hit, not off speed, I'm sorry, breaking pitches. If he can't hit AAA Reno breaking pitches from right-handed pitchers, how is he going to do that in the major leagues? The truth is he wasn't ready. And, many people looked at his batting average and OBP and slugging and OPS and said, get this guy up here. He's clearly done everything he can do, but he was just crushing meat fastballs from meatball pitchers. And he was not doing anything against right-on-right breaking pitches. And it was totally predicted that major league pitchers were going to exploit that. Those were the exact words, again, used by Michael McDermott in his article before Lawlar was called up. And so now he's here. What do you do with the guy? He's not better than Eugenio Suarez. Might be a little better defender. Certainly has more range. But he's not a better hitter. He's not more of a threat at the plate. He's not better than Geraldo Perdomo, and he's not better than Ketel Marte. About the only argument you can make to get him playing time is if you want to bench Pavin Smith and let Lawlar play second base half the time and let Ketel go ahead and take DH at bats against right-hand pitching and bench Pavin Smith. That's it. There's no other way to get Lawlar in the lineup more than a couple times per week. And it's a reasonable question about whether he should have been called up in the first place. And now they're stuck because they called him up, and if they turn around and send him right back down, that's not good for his confidence, and it's not good for their egos, and it's not good for anything or anybody. So, they should have not caved to the pressure to get him up here, and they should have waited.
I think with Lawlar, two things can be true. Is it fair to judge him on 11 plate appearances, regardless of how bad they've been? No, I don't think it's fair to judge any major league hitter on this small of a sample size. On the other hand, can the Diamondbacks afford to put anything but their very best lineup out there on a day-to-day basis? Like, do they have leeway to sort of experiment and kind of try to see what they have with Lawlar, see if he can figure it out if they give him some leeway? I don't really think the Diamondbacks are in position to do that. It's just as you said earlier, like the players we're talking about him replacing have all had very good seasons. It's Gino Suarez, who has an OPS over 800. It's Perdomo, who probably should start the All-Star game at shortstop, at least as things stand right now. And Ketel Marte, who finished, top 3 in MVP voting last year. Like, there's just no argument to be made with any of those guys. Even Pavin Smith, like, against a right-handed pitcher, do you want Jordan Lawlar right on right as opposed to Pavin Smith left on right? I don't think there's much of a case to be made there either, even if you're not feeling great about how Pavin looks at the plate right now. So, I'm kind of with you where they're just in a really tricky spot. And I know you and I, we still spoke somewhat positively about the move at the time. We talked about the excitement of having a highly touted prospect called up and how maybe Lawlar could come up and really be a boost to this team. But what we've seen is Lawlar seeing 64% breaking pitches so far, and he has a 60% whiff rate. That's not going to play.
Yeah, and I want to address some questions. Zach Gonzalez asked a really good question. So he's not good enough to adjust? Well, my point is that adjustment needed to take place in Reno because he's not going to get the everyday at bats, which is what we're talking about here, to make that adjustment easy. If he played for the Chicago White Sox or the Colorado Rockies and a team could afford to stick him out there every day and live with whatever he produces, perhaps he would make that adjustment at the major league level. But the Diamondbacks, as Jesse just said, just don't have that luxury. And so in order for him to be a productive player in a situation that he's in, he needed to make that adjustment in AAA before he got here. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, now you're in a tough position where it looks kind of weird if you just send Lawlar back to AAA after all this. We'll see what the Diamondbacks do there. We've got some injury updates to get to, as well as a preview of this weekend's series against the St. Louis Cardinals. But first, one more quick word from the guys over at Foul Territory.
I just want to say, before Arena Club, if you were trying to very actively buy, sell, trade, it was very complicated and used a lot of mail that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to do it, but I'm glad we have Arena Club now because it's a one-stop shop for everything card related.
It is, and right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you're a collector, you've got to check out Arena Club. Go get after it.
Well, we do have some good news to talk about on the show, Jack, and that is that Justin Martinez, it appears, is going to return to the Diamondbacks this weekend. Given the bullpen's performance while Martinez was out, this is very good news for this team.
Yes, he hit over 100 miles an hour. That news has been out there. We published an article about that. It's been discussed in multiple corners of the D-backs world. So I think most of our listeners know about this already. And he is scheduled to fly to St. Louis unless he reported some kind of discomfort or injury today when he spoke with the team in the afternoon. But it seems like all systems go. Usually they just don't like to confirm these things too early because they have roster moves, corresponding moves to make. They don't want to telegraph it when there's a guy on the roster that's probably going to get bumped. And they may need to use him, and they don't want the guy having that on his mind. But I would absolutely expect Martinez to be available to Torey Lovello come Friday.
Drey Jameson and Demetrio Crisantes on the negative side here. Both of those guys hit the injured list. Jack, I don't know if you have any other details to add here, but Drey Jameson, an elbow injury that does not seem to be related to Tommy John surgery. Steve Gilbert reported that earlier today. But Crisantes' injury, unfortunately, a little more serious.
Yes, Crisantes suffered a posterior labral tear. He's got a torn labrum in his shoulder. He's having surgery, and he is out for the year. Chris Slivka, the director of player development, advised me that they do expect him to be ready for spring training, but absolutely awful news for Crisantes. He hit 341 last year between rookie ball and low A, and he was still in the adjustment process at the very tough Hitters Park in the Hitters Northwest League at High A Hillsboro. He was only hitting, I think, 252, but he had over a 770 OPS. It's actually above average for that league, and he had more walks and strikeouts. He was playing pretty good third base and second base. He was progressing nicely. It's another in a long line, unfortunately, of Diamondbacks top-rated prospects that have had season-ending shoulder injuries on the heels of Corbin Carroll, Jordan Lawlar, Drew Jones. Now, those guys were all first-round draft picks. Crisantes was a seventh-round pick, but he had risen all the way up to number 2 prospect on Baseball America's list, and he was number 5 on the Arizona Diamondbacks on SI list heading into the season. So that's a tough blow. With Jameson, pardon me, he hit the 7-day IL with an elbow inflammation, and according to Slivka, they don't expect that to take too long a time. One other note, Adrian Del Castillo has begun his rehab assignment. He was dealing with a shoulder injury in his throwing shoulder, but he's now playing games in the complex league, and probably after a handful of games at Salt River, we would expect him to make his return to the Reno Aces.
Adrian Del Castillo. Seems like it's been a while. It's been a while since we've seen Adrian Del Castillo in a Diamondbacks uniform. Something maybe we'll get that opportunity later in the season. Before we get out of here, we want to briefly talk about this weekend series against the St. Louis Cardinals. And Jack, this is a Cardinals team that is more formidable than at least I expected them to be. At least so far, they come into this series 27-23. You can see the pitching probables for the series on the screen if you're joining us on YouTube. It's Zach Gallen against Miles Michaelis on Friday, then Kelly against Liberatore on Saturday, and then Brandon Pfaadt going against Sonny Gray in the finale on Sunday. 3 totally competent pitchers on the Cardinals side, and the Diamondbacks historically have not played very well in that ballpark, Jack. They are 32-56 all time on the road against the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's not great. I don't know what it is about St. Louis. Maybe it's just that city. Maybe it's tough to play in. Maybe it's the humidity. I don't know how humid it is right now in late May, but they've always struggled there. You're absolutely right. This is going to be a tough series, really tough. Their offenses kind of got knocked into a slump here by the Dodgers. And those are, as you said, 3 very competent, even good starters, I would say. And seems like we say this a lot, but the Cardinals have a much better bullpen than the Diamondbacks do. They're easily a top 10 bullpen, maybe top 7. And the dream of acquiring Ryan Helsley, that's gone out the window. The Cardinals are now ahead of the Diamondbacks in the wild card race by a couple of games. And Helsley seems to have righted his ship. He started off with 8 walks in 10 innings, and now I think he's got 10 walks in 18 innings, so something like that. So he's definitely improved quite a bit there. And they came into play today with a 1.13 ERA plus. So that's a pretty good pitching staff overall. Their offense isn't great, but one thing to note about the Cardinals is they have a lot of bench players that contribute. If you look at their baseball reference page, you see a bunch of guys with 40, 50, 60 plate appearances that all have like really high batting average and OPS. So they're able to mix and match and get guys in there and get them in the right spot and buttress. But Brendan Donovan, I think, is hitting 330 or was before today, and was leading the league in hits and doubles. He's having a really good season. So expect a tough one in St. Louis. Anything can happen. It's a 3-game series. Hopefully the D-backs bats can wake back up and they get good pitching. Allen, we'll see.
Yeah, the Cardinals, I mean, their offense has been pretty formidable this season. They're at a 109 WRC plus, and over on Fangraphs, they have 6 different position players who are over 1 WAR for the season, which is pretty good at this point in the year. Nolan Arenado, Lars Nootbaar, Victor Scott, Mason Wynn, Ivan Herrera, who's only played 17 games, and then Brendan Donovan, as you mentioned before, who's really leading the way for them offensively. So it's a surprisingly kind of balanced offense, and as you mentioned earlier, the pitching has been pretty good as well. So another tough series here for the D-backs. They got a break with the Rockies over the weekend, but the difficult schedule sort of continues here before things eventually kind of start to lighten up for them. So yeah, anything else on this weekend, Jack?
I think that I'll probably enjoy watching Merrill Kelly pitch on Saturday. That's always my favorite thing to do when it comes to the Diamondbacks. I just really enjoy watching the artist at work. And so hopefully he'll be able to bring home a victory for the Diamondbacks and put them in a position to either win or not be swept, one or the other.
The Diamondbacks pitching staff as a whole, I mean, I guess maybe we kind of separate the bullpen and the starters here. From a starting pitching standpoint at this point, the Diamondbacks have gotten pretty good results lately from a number of these guys. Like Ryne Nelson was good, Brandon Pfaadt, the quality start that we were talking about earlier. And at this point, Jack, the Diamondbacks are, I guess they're 22nd in starting pitching ERA, which still feels a little bit lower than maybe I would expect it to be after Burnes has heated up a little bit here, and Brandon Pfaadt has continued to stay afloat, and Merrill Kelly's been doing his thing. But I guess when Zach Gallen has an ERA over 5 and Eduardo Rodriguez has had the results that he has, it'll take a little longer for those numbers to improve for this team.
Yeah, well, they're 23 now for 50 in quality starts, right? So that's 46%, and that puts them like in the top 6 of Major League Baseball in quality starts. I mean, that's pretty good. They're right up there in most innings pitched per game started, in the top 3, I believe, and they're in the top 5 or 6 in quality start percentage. So the starters have rounded into form mostly. As I said, Zach Gallen needs to join that club hopefully soon, and we'll see how it goes.
He'll have an opportunity in the opener on Friday against Miles Michaelis, and that will be our next show. Be sure to join us then Friday night post-game. We'll be right back here on our YouTube channel. I will also mention, Jack, on the starting pitching, Diamondbacks are 3rd in innings from their starting pitchers at 277 1/3. Only the Kansas City Royals and Philadelphia Phillies have more. So their starters, their run prevention numbers have not been great. But in terms of just volume of work, they're actually near the top of the league. So we'll continue to monitor those numbers moving forward. Well, thank you all to those of you who have joined us here live. We really appreciate you being here with us, leaving comments along the way. If you haven't already, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, drop a like on this video, and if you're joining us after the fact, you can still comment then as well. We'd love to hear from you and interact with you in the comments here on YouTube. If you're joining us on the audio only side, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave us a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow us on social media. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59, and our show is at Snakes Territory. Jack does a great job covering the Diamondbacks over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. So be sure to find all of his great work over there. Jack, anything else before we say goodbye on this Wednesday night?
Just to add to the plea for support, nothing is better than word of mouth. If you are enjoying this podcast, please tell your friends.
There you go. The journey to 1,000 subscribers continues. We're getting close. We're about 3/4 the way there. We really appreciate all of your support along the way. So thank you again for being with us, and we'll be back here with another episode of Snakes Territory on Friday night.